Welcome to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, mama of two, holistic pregnancy and pediatric sleep consultant, and the founder of Empowered Decisions. In our seasons together, I'm here to help you step into your inner confidence from pregnancy to motherhood. Whether you are preparing to meet your baby or integrating into new mom life, this is a safe space with education and support for your journey. Join me as we raise the vibe of our motherhood collective. Welcome back to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm Anne. I am a pregnancy and infant and toddler sleep coach, and I am your host today. And we're talking about a topic that I have been asked questions about for years. It is a very hot topic, and I wanted to share tips with you today. And ironically enough, I just traveled with my kids this past weekend. So I was like, this is perfect timing to share my top sleep tips when we're talking about traveling with little kids. And this topic of travel and sleep comes up often when I'm talking with new families or kind of exploring sleep coaching, and definitely when I'm coaching with families. Ironically enough, there's many times where I'm coaching with families literally right before they are taking a trip. Like we will be in our planning being like, okay, if we can coach in this window, then when we wrap up, they'll be traveling in some capacity. And I usually encourage families to do that. If we have the time to coach before they're leaving, I like them to go for it. Because I'm like, then you can go enjoy your trip with your sleeping child and not have to have sleep struggles be a part of the trip. So I usually encourage that. And unfortunately, when it comes to sleep training, since most people think that sleep training just means one thing, or there's like this overarching, like kind of all sleep training is the same, the stereotype that you can't have all the things, meaning if you've gone through some sort of sleep training process, that there's a stereotype that you have to be on this perfect schedule and your baby has to have a perfect sleep environment, aka you have to be home in sleep jail, or else sleep is going to be bad, which actually couldn't be more true. That is false. So tonight we're also going to be busting some sleep myths. But when it comes to holistic sleep coaching, and I actually just had a explore call with a family earlier today, and she was really concerned about this. I'm like, okay, one, I want to do this. I want to make sure that we are successful. Like, what does life look beyond? And I think the integration into your normal life is really important, because I can tell you that we're going to have success in our 2 weeks together and say that with confidence, but I always want to look at it long term, and you should be able to live your life. You should be able to travel. You should be able to do all these things and still have a solid sleep foundation with your child and not have to worry that travel or these things is going to send you backwards in any capacity. So holistic sleep coaching and laying a solid sleep foundation for your child actually gives you the exact opposite. It gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility. So we know that travel can mean many different things, whether we're literally just talking about getting out of the house, or we're talking about being away for a day or a weekend, or let's say a longer vacation, 1 to 2 weeks, or we're talking international travel and it's going to be much longer than that. So I actually didn't even quantify this list of tips. We're just going to dive on into each one of them. But one common question that I get a lot is traveling to different time zones and what my recommendation is. So I recommend that you immediately get onto the new time zone. So one that I experience commonly, and me being in California on the West Coast in the States, and families traveling to the East Coast, let's say New York, for example, it's a 3-hour time difference. And so families like, hey, we're going for a few days or we're going for a week. What should I do? So there are some instances, if you're going somewhere and there is a time difference and it's for a short period of time, then maybe you do some splitting the difference and you don't completely throw them into the new time zone. But usually if we're going away for any substantial amount of time, let's say it's 5 days, 7 days or more, you're going to want to get on the new time zone fast, because babies and toddlers tend to adjust faster into time adjustments than we do. And there's a couple reasons for that. I always tell families, after they've gone through coaching with me and we've gotten rid of overtiredness, your child is no longer carrying around sleep debt, they adjust really fast. We as adults, especially as parents, we're usually carrying around some sleep debt, we're tired. So kind of that sensation, that feeling, that phenomenon of jet lag and adjusting and just feeling kind of run down. Babies and toddlers generally don't experience that, especially when they're well rested. So we just want to get on the new time zone. Here's some examples of that, though, because it can really look like a lot of different things depending on when you're traveling. But especially when going internationally, if you've flown all night and you're arriving in a new morning, which would be your nighttime, you're not going to want to treat it like nighttime. You're going to want to treat it like their morning. But let's say we fly from the West Coast to the East Coast in the States. And let's say you travel, you take a flight in the morning and, your little one's taking their naps, somewhere during that day. I always say, like, once you get there, treat the next time as it is there. So let's say you get there early enough for, one of the next naps to happen. Then you take the nap. But you want to make sure they're up so that you can get onto East Coast bedtime. And you're going to treat it as normal, as if you never left the West Coast. You're just going to jump on into that. Could it take their body a few days to adjust and may you see some sleep disruption? Absolutely. But the more we keep them on another time zone, it's just a little bit harder for their bodies to adjust into that. And this is going to tie into either if we're talking air travel or you're talking car travel, right? Sometimes we got to travel to go see families, and whether our child's in the car for an hour or hours throughout the course of the day. I have said this for years. It is what it is. We can't perfectly control schedules and sleep environments and when they're going to fall asleep from the nap when we're in an airport and airplanes all day long, or we're in a car all day long, whatever it is. So I really like to alleviate that pressure and the stress and what's it going to look like and try to like perfectly control things. We can do things like try to time travel around a nap, around sleep, and always recommended. I even do the same myself, but you don't know if it's going to work or not. A key example of this, I just traveled. I had to do car travel just 2 hours away. And I tried to time it on the way back for when my toddler would be napping. Didn't nap the entire time. Actually, it's not completely true. Right as we were like 20, maybe 30 minutes out, he started dozing in the backseat. I'm like, oh, great. You couldn't have done this like an hour ago. So we can always try and attempt. And sometimes it's successful. A lot of little ones find motion in the car really soothing. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, it is what it is. I always recommend families, you make decisions once you get to your destination and you can control your child's schedule and their environment. For example, going back to the East Coast, West Coast, you travel all day, you get to New York, then you get your car, you get picked up, and then you got to drive to wherever you're staying, and then you get there. Once you're there and you're like, okay, where's my baby going to be sleeping? Where's my toddler going to be sleeping? Whether you're setting up pack and plays or there's a room, whatever it is for you. Once you're there and you can reflect on, okay, when was the last time my child napped, whether that was on the airplane, whether that was in the car ride, then you're playing forward and making decisions in whatever the next part of their sleep is going to be. But you only want to do that when you can control it. When you know that you have the sleep environment set up and you know when they have slept, that way you can start aligning and like getting them into the new time zone. Because typically while we're away, like on vacation, right? We're doing some sort of travel. Usually the thing that takes the hit the most, I would say, is scheduling. Because if we're going away, we're probably doing fun things like visiting family and friends and, going on excursions and seeing things, sightseeing, whatever it is. So I don't like to put a ton of pressure on families that you're going to go away on a trip, but you have to be in the hotel the whole time. You have to be at the Airbnb or your parents' house or whatever it is, because that's no fun and that's not living. That's why I usually say, let's lay the foundation, let's get your baby sleeping, and then go live your life, right? A part of that integration. But sleep doesn't have to be perfect to be good. And it's okay that their schedules get off. It's okay that they skip the nap here and there while you're away. Things don't have to be perfect. It's all how you counterbalance, navigate, and adjust. So here's some examples of that. And I can also use some personal examples. So generally, if we are going to, let's say, have a not so restful day, and sometimes literally traveling, like I said, can just be getting out of the house. So there's the example of like, let's say that you're out for the afternoon, you go to a birthday party. There's something that basically means your child didn't get normal rest and naps at home. Try to counterbalance and do an earlier bedtime. That's one way that we can help them prevent added overtiredness when there's some travel and out of the house going on. So that's always a very easy one. If we have a skip nap, if we have a short nap, we have a poor nap day where you were literally out and about for the day, try to counterbalance. Don't just keep their bedtime at a normal time. Let's pull it up. That's going to help them head into their nighttime without added overtiredness, because that overtiredness is always going to create added sleep disruption. And this weekend's travel with my kids was very abnormal. We traveled all day Saturday. My toddler didn't get to take his nap. We got there was like a family party. Then it was like other family stuff going on afterwards. So normally I'd be like, okay, he skipped his nap. I'm going to get him down early. I couldn't even do that because we were heading into the next part of the festivities. He went to bed so late that night. And that's not how I roll. Like definitely am one that likes to prioritize sleep. But again, it is what it is. Like we're having fun. We're seeing family that we don't normally see. And it just was what it was that day. And then the next day was like kind of get up and more family stuff. And then we're on the road. And that's where I was trying to time it for the nap. Like, okay, he's at least got to take a nap today. And that didn't really happen either. So that night, both of the boys went down. This was Sunday. Both of the boys went down early that night and slept great. Like we needed to catch up from a very busy weekend of activities. But it's things like that. You're always going to want to kind of find those areas where you can help to counterbalance, because travel is usually exhausting. We know it's exhausting for us, especially if you're a parent traveling with small children. Like there's always so many things going on, but we want to kind of always be assessing, all right, what did their day look like? Hey, what did we do? When's the next sleep? And how could I help them to head into their next sleep set up more for success, like creating opportunity where they can have more optimal chances of getting good sleep, whether that be nap or nighttime sleep. Then let's talk about sleep environment. I always like to just you're going to want to simulate home. And if home is set up nice and great, let's say they have a nice dark room and it's cool, and, whether they have a sound machine or a sleep sack or, whatever like environment is set up at home that they're used to, you're always going to want to simulate that, but not with perfection. And really transparently with you, when I had my eldest who was younger, I did a lot of travel, like I mentioned, but I used to stress about it way more, like, oh, the hotel rooms aren't dark enough. And I was traveling with blackout blinds and, tape and these sorts of things. And if for that season of life, it was fine. But you know what the funny thing was? On the rooms where I couldn't get it perfect, he still slept fine. I'm like, this is not at all how I would want his room to be. This is not like home, even though I was trying to not even just simulate that. I was trying to match it, which was unsuccessful in many times. And he still slept fine. So just have the vibe of you're trying to simulate it with getting as dark as you can. And some tips even around that, if there's not a separate room where your child can be in, because oftentimes that's not the case, unless you're literally at somebody's house and there's another room. Oftentimes they're in the same hotel room with you. Is walk-in closets can be a really great way to if you have a pack and play, or, oftentimes hotels provide, you can ask them oh, do you have cribs? And a lot of them do. There's even, depending on what city you're traveling to, in a lot of major cities, you can even rent cribs. They drop it off and send it back if you weren't already aware of that. I've done that a few times and it is incredible. But things like walk-in closets are great, where if you can't even fully put the pack and play or the crib in there, partially doing it, can kind of simulate that they have their own space, which can be really nice. Then one product that I wish I had when my eldest son was young is the Slumber Pod. I love me the Slumber Pod. If you're not familiar, the Slumber Pod is basically a tent, and it's made out of fabric, and it folds up just like fabric does, but it's got these poles that come with it that feed through the tent. So you basically pop it open, and then you set it on top of any pack and play, and it creates a beautiful dark space. I have used the Slumber Pod in rooms while traveling that are the brightest of brightest rooms, and that Slumber Pod is blacked out. And there's also really cool features about it. There's a little zip pouch, you can pop your monitor in there. And if you were someplace warm, there's a little area at the bottom where you could put in a little portable fan, which you can buy from them, but making sure that their sleep space is optimal. And I can't recommend that anymore. I've recommended the Slumber Pod as a travel recommendation for years, and actually just not in 2025, but I would say maybe heading into the end of 2024, I just became an affiliate with them. So I'm going to have to see if I can, in the show notes here, put a link to the Slumber Pod. So if you want to check that out, I have a 10% off discount code with Slumber Pod. And when they're running promos, it should be 10% on top of whatever they're offering. So if you know that you're a family who travels, you're this is what we do, and there's always maybe some sort of struggle around sleep, or just wanting to what should we do when we travel? Totally check out the Slumber Pod. It is a wise investment. I've had mine, my son's 3, but I've had it since he was turning 4 months old. I have used that so many times. I've even shared it. I worked with a twin mom recently she had one. She's somebody let me borrow one. And I was I will send you mine, because they were doing some travel after we were coaching, like I mentioned before. And I've even let friends and family borrow it because it's such a good find. Okay, so recapping the sleep environment. You're going to want to simulate at your home environment as best possible. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, and bring the goodies. Bring their sleep sack. If they have a lovey or a snuggle buddy that they love, bring that with you. Sleep sack, lovey, a travel sound machine. There's so many out there, but you're kind of want to find something that's like small and portable so it's not taking up too much space. I love the Yoga Sleep USA. It's small and gray, packs a punch. Like there's, a few different sound settings, and I actually probably have, gosh, I don't know, in my closet, 3, 4, or 5 of them that I kind of, take randomly. I just grab, oh, we're heading out for the weekend. Let me throw a couple in the bag, whether I need to put a sound machine in one room or 2 rooms, whatever it is. So, grabbing things like that is also really helpful, that once you get to your destination, it's like, either you have a crib there, set up the pack and play. If you're using a slumber pod, pop up the tent, you have your sleep sack, you got the goodies, and you're like, okay, now you're done. I never like families like getting to a destination. You're like, okay, well, what does the sleep space look like here? I want you getting ahead of it. That way it can alleviate that stress of once you're there, you're setting it up, you're done, you're jumping into the next sleep. Like I said, it's the nap, it's the bedtime, whatever's coming up for you. Also, one thing that's always funny about airplane travel is airplane is basically white noise. So, like I said, we can't always perfectly control when we're in a car or an airplane that they're going to fall asleep when we think or hope that they're going to fall asleep. But there is something soothing about that sound. And some babies actually sleep really great on airplanes. Another tip that I'll usually give families, especially with young babies, whether they are bottle or breastfed, is use a breast, bottle, or pacifier upon takeoff and landing, which will really help with their ears. And I'll usually get this question because when I'm working with families, I'm helping to remove those associations, like babies learn to sleep independently. But I'm like, don't throw it away. Or, let's say we're no longer nursing as baby falls asleep or using a bottle to sleep. But I'm like, in those scenarios, again, it goes back to the vibe. It is what it is. It is okay in those moments. Like it's really going to help them. It's going to help them be more calm. They get to be, in your lap usually. So takeoff and landing, definitely a big tip there. Then another question I always get is like the nerves around travel messing up sleep, right? Like let's say the sleep environment wasn't perfect. Let's say you couldn't honor, their sleep routines and, them sleeping on their own or whatever sleep looks like for you. I never really like parents to stress about this too much because I do want, if you've, spent the money, you've taken the time, you've planned the trip, you've gotten there, right? Like I said, I don't care if you're traveling one day with kids or you're going for 10. It is a lot of work to take children anywhere. So if that's the case, I always want there to be, if you're kind of on your trip and you're seeing that things are getting off track, let's say, I'm always like, enjoy your trip, do your best. This usually means like, co-sleeping or something like, oh, we got off track in some capacity or things aren't perfect or their schedule is super messed up and now they're overtired. And actually transparently and personal story here in this exact trip I'm talking about this past weekend that I just took and my son, traveling all day and going to a party and then going out afterwards to a family dinner and then getting back to the hotel room late. The hotel was not set up for there to be space really for the pack and play, which is surprising. I don't think I've ever actually encountered that in a hotel room. But based on where the bed, the couch, and the desk was set up, there really just wasn't a great space for it. Technically, could it have fit? Yes, but we wouldn't have been able to walk in the room at all, like aside from maybe the side of the bed. So since we got back so late, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sandwich him in between older brother and me, and we're just going to get ready for bed. And God, he's so tired. Like he's just going to go to sleep. No. My toddler was in the crib like, oh, this is fun, right? He had like a million questions. He ended up falling asleep like an hour later. My eldest son went from like, yay, brother's sleeping with us to like, oh, dude, like go to sleep. So it was an exhausting night for me because one, the bed wasn't that big and now I have 2 children in bed with me and toddlers oftentimes do gymnastics in bed. So it's like, I got a foot in my face and kicked in the back and he's doing somersaults, all these things. And I woke up like, oh gosh, I wish I had just set up the pack and play because he loves it and he sleeps so great in it. But nonetheless, things get off track and things don't always go as planned when we're traveling, and it's okay. Just roll with it. Try not to be like, you failed in some capacity. You should have done things differently. It is what it is. But here's the deal. Here's how you prevent sleep from terribly going backwards when you get home. When you get home, you get right back on track. And I have done this for years, even years prior, because that's not an uncommon thing when I travel with my oldest when he was younger. We'd go to grandma and grandpa's house and, he would co-sleep with me on those, day weekends that we would go home. When we came back home, back in your crib. And I do the same thing, back in your bed, back in your crib. And that is where if you set that sleep expectation at home of like, this is what we do at home. These are our routines. This is our schedule. This is our sleep environment. They will fall right back into that. So it doesn't have to be because I see and hear this all the time that, sleep is usually not so great. And then they traveled and then the child got sick and then things just like headed in a bad direction. And it's understandable because travel is one of those things that can throw sleep off. And there's a lot of different ways, right? We're talking, short travel and longer travel and international, all the different ways that it can look. But ultimately, I just want you to know that you can always get sleep back on track. There's also the sentiment, I'll hear this from families, like many families want to travel. I don't care if you have a newborn baby or a young baby or a toddler, and let's say you're struggling with sleep in some capacity, like many families want to travel, and let's say you're stuck at home in sleep jail because sleep is bad and sleep is hard, and in some capacity, sleep is easier if you're home. But sometimes I'll get like families will share, like, it feels like I'm never going to get to do those things. It feels like I'm never going to have the confidence, to leave and travel with my kids because it just feels so hard. I've got you. Okay. Book a call. I have free resources, but book a call, like explore holistic sleep coaching because you can have a sleeping baby, be a rested parent. Like I always share with moms, like you're meant to thrive and like actually enjoy motherhood. This doesn't need to be like a sentence, and something that you're having to carry out where you're just really struggling with sleep and it's coming at a cost of you doing the things with your child and your family that you've desired doing before they were here, right? Doing things like travel. I always want parents to go live. That's why I usually encourage them after we're done coaching. I'm like, go do the thing, go out for the day. Oh, one tip that I forgot to share, which is important, especially just, I'm kind of in the mindset of like actual travel where you're leaving for a day or 5 or 10 or whatever, is nap one. When you're going to be out and about for the day or you're choosing when you're going to be out, if you can aim to get nap one in the crib, nap one does a really good job of setting the tone of sleep for the day. So it's not usually the nap that I want to mess up. Does stuff pop up where the doctor's office is like, hey, we can see them at Tuesday at 9 a.m. And you're like, great, that's when nap one is or whatever. Like, of course, there's things that we can't control. But if you're planning it, plan to get nap one in crib and then be out. And maybe you're out for nap two, or if your kid's on a multi-nap schedule, then maybe you're out for the afternoon. And then again, you're going to counterbalance with an earlier bedtime and get things back on track. You can have a sleeping baby, you can have a solid sleep foundation, and you can experience life with your littles. Point blank period. You can have all of those things. So to recap some of these tips, time zone, I want you to jump into the new time zone in general. It's the best way to go. Nap one does a good job of setting the tone of sleep for the day. Try to protect that. When it comes to car rides and airplane travel, it is what it is. You're making your decisions. Once you're at your destination, you can control things. Bring the goodies. You're going to try to simulate home and set up the sleep space as best you can. You're going to plan for that before you're doing your travel so that you can alleviate that stress on you once you are there. And yes, you can travel with your kids and still keep sleep solid. And if it's not solid, you can always get things back on track. I really hope that this episode was helpful. I love this topic. I help families with this all the time. And if you are wanting to explore holistic sleep coaching, you know where to find me. And until the next episode, lots of love. Whether you're a tired mom struggling with your little one's sleep or an expecting mom looking for empowerment and advocacy as you prepare for birth, I'm here to show up for you with proven strategies and education to elevate your journey. You deserve to feel heard and given the tools to have success. Mama, you do not have to navigate your pregnancy or sleep struggles alone. Head over to empoweredwithann.com to discover how we can support you. Confidence, empowerment, and peace are just a click away.